So hello, and thank you for joining us for tonight's open book program, everyone. This artist talk is part of the exhibition These Times, which is our annual members exhibition. I'm Kara Petralia, the current board president of the Philadelphia Center for the Book. Our mission is to advance the book as a vital contemporary art form, connecting the diverse community of institutions and individuals whose passion is books. We do this through a variety of programs, from our artist working group, Book, Paper, Scissors Artist Book Fair, our annual member exhibitions, the Edible Book Festival, and open book events. Membership with PCB entitles you access to these programs and provides support for us to continue offering these events and connecting the book arts community of Greater Philadelphia. The Open Book Series is the new name for our members and friends meetings of the past, which some of you have definitely participated in. These programs are opportunities for PCB members and the book arts interested community to gather together to explore exhibitions, collections, and other book art related opportunities. In 2021, we plan to offer more of these programs virtually and look forward to hosting them in person once we're able to do that again. And then now is also the time where we typically hold our annual Artist Book Fair, Book, Paper, Scissors. This year, we'll be celebrating virtually across Facebook and Instagram by promoting our member artists and sharing memories from past events. If you go to our Facebook or Instagram accounts, you can find out more about how to participate, or we can talk a little bit about it at the end of the program tonight. And then a quick note for everybody, although you seem to be pretty experienced Zoom users, there's two options for viewing everything. We will be using the screen share function, but if you want to change it so you can see everybody in a small screen, in a small view on your screen, you can go to the top right and change it to gallery view. And then if you prefer to just see one person speaking at a time, the speaker view will be the setting you'll choose. And then during the program, we're going to ask everybody to keep yourself muted unless you're going to be directly speaking to the group, so that we can help limit interruptions as everyone gets a chance to talk. And another reminder, we'll be recording this as it's already started. And we will be sharing this on our website and across social media. So if you're uncomfortable having your video shared, please feel free to turn that off. And then if you want to chat using the typed chat function, we will be moderating that and can share your questions or comments as well. Now I'd like to pass it over to Susan, our exhibition committee chair, who will talk a bit about the exhibition and introduce all of our artists tonight.
Hello and welcome. I assume you've seen the exhibition. Otherwise you probably wouldn't be enjoying it here. But in any case, this has been an unprecedented year, as we all know, with the pandemic, which has significantly affected our lives and how we live. And the mass protests, occasioned by just one more extraordinary act of police brutality that is galvanizing and the anti-racist movement. Then with a leadership or a lack of leadership, the denying of science, the questioning of facts, the culture of extreme political, divisiveness. I mean, it's been a rather extraordinary year. And it's inevitably, we thought, affected what people are doing, their artistic practice, whether they are replying or directly to some of the things that are happening, or whether it is simply affecting how they are going about making. And so this exhibition is really focused, is really rather large in its focus, so that it's assuming that everybody has been affected by these times. It is simply a grouping of work. It doesn't have to be art. It has to be art. Doesn't have to be a book art that has been made in this year. So it's a fairly broad focus. I want to bring that we had one of our longtime members died very suddenly just a couple of weeks ago. And his piece, he was in the show as he always is. His piece is a sort of an interesting introduction to this. Because one thing is that it's one of the few that's ironic or slightly comic. Most people haven't found too much comedy in this. Let me share the screen. This is Al Brown.
Oh God.
And his, yeah, it's quite a shame. What he did was, he was looking at these times and how we keep talking about, these extraordinary times, these trying times, these unexpected times. I mean, it comes in all the time. And he's collaging or setting this against, these various kinds of images that play with it. And it just seems like a rather interesting, in some ways tongue in cheek, in some ways rather serious, approach to this particular topic. And anyway, I'll begin with that. And now I would like to introduce Karen Viola, who's not a Philadelphia resident or a Philadelphia area resident. She's from White Plains, and she's a designer, having worked with designing innovative children's books, a painter, a nature printer, a book artist, and she runs the Climbing Tree Press. So Karen, could you take over talking?
Okay.
I'm gonna, here are yours. So I will.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, I'm honored to be here in this way. And my book, which is called What the Sea Has Seen, it arose in the context of the horrifying police brutality that we all witnessed graphically. And I had this strong desire to do anti-racist work. And I also had been working a lot with a client on designing engaging history and social studies books for middle school age children. So I was very much immersed in history. And I realized the best work that I could probably do is really dive into educating myself better about, I don't know, how we got here. And I also was working from a prompt, the word sea, from Are You Book Enough challenge, which I'm involved in. And so I've also been working with indigo, natural indigo dyeing and shibori techniques. So I've been always drawn to finding ways to combine textile with paper. And I am also very drawn to the accordion structure and timelines. I love timelines. So this book, I dove really deep into the ocean and just kind of stuck with the Atlantic slave trade. And I wanted to, I guess, try to encapsulate the highlights of what happened. And as I was researching, I came across Emory University has this database. It's slavevoyages.org. And it's an incredible piece of work. It's taken them, I don't know, over a decade to gather all the data, and it's shared to the world so that people can use it for projects. And I was really struck by this graph that is in the picture that's on the screen right now, but this really doesn't show the whole timeline. It's the structure, the book structure is an accordion pocket structure. So these cards kind of slide into the pockets, but the pockets themselves comprise this timeline, which graphically shows how many enslaved Africans made a voyage across the Middle Passage. And the grand total of 12,521,337. It's sort of an inconceivable number. So I chunked it into 8 sections, 50 years each, and each section shows a ship. And I was interested in the juxtaposition of sort of this romantic kind of majesty of these sailing ships on the ocean. And the book, which it's hard to kind of see, but the book can be viewed on the back side, and it kind of has this look of just, ships sailing on the ocean. But on the other side, which was the other screen, yeah, the timeline, it actually graphically depicts how the number of voyages that were made gets increases and increases. And when at the time of the founding of our country, it just goes crazy. And it was fascinating to correlate it with capitalism and the Industrial Revolution, and really just start to see the patterns and which countries had more. And it just was this very somehow it was just so compelling. I was so struck by the fact that this raw data, which is just numbers, had this compelling narrative aspect to it. So like the idea of contrasting these sailing ships with the fact that they were floating dungeons and torture chambers, and the contrast between the light striking the ocean and the blood of all the bodies that were either throwing themselves overboard and followed by sharks, and it just the horrors of the slave trade, and how the life of it, like it's like a kind of a curve that goes up and down and it goes away. But it was this monster. It turned into this monster project where each card, I wanted to, like I said, encapsulate some major points of what was going on. And I wanted to do it in a balanced kind of global perspective way, try not to be so American centric. So I wanted to focus on key events that were going on in the New World, in the Americas, like the genocide of the Native Americans and this stuff about the enslaved people. And then, oh, by the way, this was also going on, like the major events that we learn, usually we focus on in history, like the scientific inventions. And I wanted to kind of have that as a somewhat secondary to keep people in the loop, like all those things that we know happened. Oh, and by the way, this is what was really going on, this kind of the slavery. And what I realized through this whole project, and it's an ongoing work, is that, I wanted to kind of wrap it up and neatly and put it into this little book that I could carry around with me and meditate on. And it's impossible to do that, honestly, because even though I was trying to focus on the Atlantic slave trade, everything is just enmeshed with everything else in the world. It's very complicated. And I honestly, I kind of felt like a child who snuck into a pool meant for grown-ups, and I was trying not to drown. That's what I felt like. I came away feeling extremely humbled, and just by the scholarly work that was done by Emory University, like I said. And it's sort of an ode to that compelling data, and it's just so important that we just keep learning and educating ourselves, and asking questions. It ended up causing me to ask more and more questions about our society. And all right, so the slave trade ended, but slavery in a different form still exists. And it really was this epic voyage that I took in teaching myself about things. I'm from Canada, so I got kind of a Canadian whitewashed version of history as a child growing up. So this was just really important, I felt, for me. And it's really changed my way of working and researching. So yeah, so I don't know how much time I just talked.
I think you've done perfectly. That's
Okay.
great. Thank you. You really did do a great job of filling things in. And that's something we wouldn't be able to do
Yeah.
if we were in a regular exhibition.
Right.
Thomas Parker Williams is a Philadelphian, and he's a printmaker, painter, book artist who's created unique, structurally complex books. That's what I sort of think about him, as well as edition books. So Thomas, get your...
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about Al Brown. I enjoyed talking to him at PCB events. He was a good guy.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
it's hugely, it was a huge shock, and we're very sad about it.
yes. But at any rate, my work is called Pestilence, and it is about the COVID-19 crisis. And it's really about the absolute abject failure of our current idiot in the White House to deal with this crisis. And generally, when I get angry, I start drawing, and that's what happened here. This idiot compared himself. I think he declared himself king in the first week of April, and I just started to throw it down on paper. And I was a painter before primarily becoming a book artist. And this is a work that was done with a variety of media. I used stains and dry pigments in oil medium, which is a painting medium that I used when I was doing painting. But at any rate, I think what you have on the website is a video.
Right.
I think you have a cover and a video, and the video is around 5 or 6 minutes, and it shows the various pages of the book. And I'm also a musician, and I did a musical score to accompany it. But the real message of this piece is essentially that a lot of people just don't want to deal with the crisis we're in. I mean, if you look at, for example, some states, mainly in the East Coast, I mean, we wear masks, we try to socially distance, but there seems to be a total disregard for this in large areas of the country. And right now, this thing is just going crazy, and it's probably going to be a long time before we can really get this thing under control. So this work is really just an expression of my rage at the absolute ineptitude that has been exhibited. And hopefully in the new year, we're going to have more competent leadership that's going to get a handle on it. But,
Thomas,
I mean, the best way to say it is to just see the video.
yeah, I'm just, when I turned it on, it's hard to hear you over it, but let me turn it on now.
Okay.
It's for at least.
Susan, can you reshare your screen?
Oh, I didn't share it? Oh, wait a second.
I think it went away.
Oh, okay, well, I will share it. No wonder you were, let's see.
Yeah, actually, okay, there it is.
There it is.
I use nudity in the figures primarily to demonstrate the fact that none of us are immune from this. It can affect all of us. And there you see the big jerk right there. And the fact is that this was dismissed as something that would go away. And of course, the Republicans didn't care. And so it's sort of like is a trip through the book, the video is.
Stop for a second. I don't know how to mute the music, the soundtrack. But anyway, Thomas, why don't you talk for a moment, then I'll turn it back on.
Sure. But here you start to see the disregard, and then on the next page you actually see the havoc that was caused. And the sad thing here is that a lot of this could have been prevented. I have a very good friend who's a registered nurse, and we were having a conversation in February about this. And he said to me, you know, this is going to really blow up. And it sure did. Mary Agnes and I did the Manhattan Fine Press Book Fair on March 7th. And by probably March 15th or 16th, it was already all through New York City. So we have a ways to go here. But pretty much described it. You sort of have to just experience the video and the images for yourself. But
We have a few more minutes to just experience it, so.
okay, I'll show up.
Anything to add, Thomas?
Not really. I mean, I just hope that we all pull together and we get over this. The good news from the UK is they're starting to use a vaccine, and hopefully in the new year, with support from leadership, we can start to stem the tide here, because this is the most serious thing that happened since the 1918 Spanish flu plague.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now Catherine Michaels, who is not a Philadelphia or area resident. She's from the Pacific Northwest. So that's rather exciting. I mean, this is certainly a Philadelphia-based organization, but we do have members that participate in various ways that are from far away, and we welcome you. She's a printmaker, works with all kinds of materials. I mean, it's so vast, it's hard to sort of summarize it. Interested in both text and image. And why don't you take it away? And I will share the screen properly this time.
Well, thank you for welcoming me into your Northeast-based group. It's been really nice to be part of the show and to start meeting some of you. And I want to introduce Cynthia Sears, who's here with me. She's a book arts collector and founder of the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art, and we're sharing a bubble. So if you haven't met her, this is the face behind the name. So the image that you're seeing right now, this is the set of 12 pandemic posts that I created over the first 10 were printed in 11. The first 11 were printed in 12 weeks. And then the little tiny one that says keep loving was printed in August. And I started these in March with the spring equinox, the cedar tree in the left. And I made that with my husband, Bill Moody. And then the 3 hands you see down in the bottom left, that was made with Bill and also my granddaughter, Emily Green. And then the Keep Loving one is handmade paper by Velma Bolliard, who's out there in New York State. So it's been a lot of help making these, printing one a week and mailing them out to over 100 people. And also my nibbling, Felix Zerna, helped crank the press a lot and, gave a lot of opinions. So a lot of people have gone into this. And as I mailed them out, the mailing list grew and grew and grew. They went out all around the world to over 100 people as the edition size grew, and people sent me back their own pandemic posts and stamps and chocolates and all kinds of things. It's just been really, really amazing to see how everyone started responding. So I want to start with number 5, which is Once Upon a Time. I want to do them in order that I made them.
Okay. Which number?
So I think it's the one on the bottom, Susan, that has the letter Once Upon a Time, but the one below that.
Sorry, one below.
Yeah, it says Once Upon a Time on the front. So this was number 5. And I think for us in Washington, week 5 came in April, and time was just starting to seem suspended. And I'd been doing postcards, but now I wanted to do something that was a little different. I just wasn't sure what my message was. And I think a lot of people might have been feeling that way at that time. And so I took all these old stamps and sewed them on to these folded papers and put this card inside. And it was sort of meant for a letter to either your past or future self. That's what I was thinking at the time. Because I felt really suspended, and I thought maybe other people were feeling the same way. Let's see, the edition size on this one was 75. And some people filled out that little dear letter and sent it back to me, which was also really sweet. So people were doing all kinds of things with this. The next one was the one with the blue hand. That was pandemic post number 9 of the 12. So this was being printed. Felix was helping me this week. I think my granddaughter Emily also came. And we were in the middle of this print run of the blue hand when George Floyd was murdered. And I'm gonna cry. It was just such an emotional time. And it felt really, really important to speak to that. And for me, what was happening is I was printing this hand with these symbols that represent things to prevent plague, things for good luck, and just thinking about how for some of us, good luck is conflated with privilege. And we don't always understand that privilege can give us more luck than others. And so that was the theme of this card. And on the back, it says, good luck is no substitute for justice, and Black Lives Matter. And then week 11, I did print a Black Lives Matter postcard. Well, it's not a postcard, it had to go in an envelope. Yeah, that's the little video, you can play that. So it just has this red printing on one side that says hold aloft until you see the light. And then as you lift it, the printing on the back comes through. So that was week 11. And I actually thought it would be the last one. But then, as I said, in August, I printed the small one on the handmade paper that Velma sent me. And I keep thinking I'm going to print more, but I have other things that I need to be printing and doing for deadlines. I'd like to come back to them, but I'm hoping that the pandemic ends sooner rather than later, and that I won't need to.
This, I don't know if you can, I mean, I know when I've looked on the exhibition, I can see this is great. I'm not sure that my screen is slanted in the way that you can see it. Can you see it? I mean,
Oh, yeah. I think
because I can't from my screen.
Yeah, we can see it, Susan. It looks great.
Good. Anyway.
So
Yeah.
those are the 12 posts, and there's one that was for my birthday. My birthday is May Day. My press is called Mayday Press. There's a poem by a section from Hilda Doolittle, who wrote it during the bombing of London, I believe, in World War II. There's our first breakfast that we had of cake when the shelter-in-place order came down. Yeah, all kinds of things.
Thank you. I mean, one of the many things that's remarkable about it is how community oriented it is and how it brings in so many people.
That was the point, for sure, was
Yeah.
to bring something to people who were shut in and by themselves, for sure.
It's a different concept of audience as collaborator in some ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Cassandra, let me get out of here for a moment. And then Cassandra Gunkel is now up, and she's Philadelphia based, at least now. Her areas are printmaking, textile art, and book arts, and she's a Pennsylvania Council in the Arts teaching artist. And that's what you were just doing earlier today, correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah, I was teaching. Thank you.
Let me share this. Oh. Okay.
Well, I have a couple of pieces.
Wait a second. I left it. I will go back. Sorry. You
That's
can start
okay.
talking.
All right. Well, I have a couple of pieces, one of which has a series of prints that I've been working on for a time with images that I've used or images that I've gone back to time and again. The first piece that I saw there was a star book. We never got a freedom tree. And in it are 4 artist proofs that sort of represent my first foray into woodblock carving some years ago. My first use of Trayvon Martin's image, and I've gone back to his image numerous times since the one that is depicted here. I'm not seeing it yet. Am I not?
I mean, did I not share it?
No, we can't see it.
Then I must not have shared it properly. I'm trying to find out where. It's funny.
Maybe it's not there. No, I saw it when you first came to
Yeah,
me.
it is here.
Oh,
Okay, let me go back and share. And no, that's not right. I seem to have lost it. I'll have to pull it up again.
Okay. Should I go on or do you want to come
Yeah,
back?
why don't you go on and I will in the meantime.
All right. So I compiled the 4 artist proofs into this one book. Each page is really quite small, 4 by 4. And the images are, there's one of Trayvon Martin. There's another image of a lynching that I borrowed that imagery from a lynching era postcard, which harkens back to the day when lynching was a commemorative community event, and people took photographs of lynchings of African Americans and others and sent them around the country to their families and friends to share, here's what's going on in my neighborhood. That's what
Can
that
you
image
see it?
is from.
Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now. So there's Trayvon Martin, an image from lynching, a noose. So I was playing around with the idea of a noose as a part of this. And in my thinking at the time, I was thinking of the places from which people of African descent in this country were lynched. It could be a pole, it could be a tree. And that took me to thinking about the freedom tree. There actually is a freedom tree in the United States. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was around the area of Boston Commons, and it was the tree around which the early colonists would gather and get themselves ready for, whatever were the activities that led up to the American Revolution. This freedom tree was kind of a place where people mobilized. So I put all these images together in a star book, and I called it We Never Got a Freedom Tree. We Never Got a Freedom Tree. And around the corners of each page, I sort of write a little bit about what the intent is of that particular image. So that's the book. I just learned how to make a star book. And the actual cover for that book, the cover is a print that I created. It's actually a print of it's a print that I created, and then I had it printed onto fabric from Spoonflower. So that's some of my fabric, and that's sort of the fastening for that particular book. And since that group of images, and that was my first foray into Trayvon Martin, Trayvon has come up in other pieces that I've done. I used his image to begin another narrative series that I have been working on in denim. And I call it my Indigo Denim series. So I use recycled denim, and I've created 5 large-scale pieces with denim. And the idea is I'm using a fabric that resonates in African-American history. Indigo was one of those early colonial era crops. It thrived in South Carolina. And for that particular crop, as well as rice in South Carolina, Africans were exported specifically from indigo growing and processing regions of Africa to make this work, to make a go of it in the United States. And so as I go through this, in my series of works, usually, large scale quilted pieces, the idea is to use this historical fabric to bring it forth to the here and now, to sort of introduce this idea that this is a historical garment fabric process that comes from Africa, that is a part of our heritage. So I use it as a sort of a background to tell other kinds of stories about our history. And so I've got large scale pieces. This particular piece, this is in my Indigo Denim series, and I call this Reparations. So in the process of, collecting all of this, collecting and recycling all of this denim to create these pieces, one of them was Trayvon Martin. I've done that a number of times. I've collected all of these labels on denim. So, as we're talking about, as we talk about reparations for slavery or ways to redress the inequities that our capitalist system have developed over time. How do we pay back the Africans on whose backs a lot of our industry and the capitalist foundation for our country rests? So as I've been working through all these denim projects, I've been putting aside all the labels from all the jeans. And I think, okay, this is a multi-billion-dollar international industry that continues to thrive. And at one point, Africans were responsible for it in the United States. And it is a specific sort of crop whose economy comes from Africa, other places as well, but also Africa. Africa is a part of the story. So this is an accordion book structure that makes use of all of those labels, as well as some prints using indigo ink. So each page has one or two of the labels from one or more multinational nations who are profiting or have profited, continue to profit from indigo, which continues to be this worldwide economic phenomenon. So you're just looking at some of the images of the individual pages. So that's a book art that uses some of my prints, and collage on some of the pages are actual denim pieces along with some of the labels. So that's, I guess it's political. It's definitely political. But I've been wanting to do this for a while. I mean, I continue to, I have a couple more pieces in my head and in progress around my indigo denim series, but I was really motivated to crank this one out this season because things were on my mind. How do you pay back? How do you even the balance? You know, the time for 40 acres and a mule are gone. But hey, there are other ways, you know, to look at and give value to that influence.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. So let me, okay, our next person is Chrissy Steele. And she has a combined liberal arts and art degree, and she also has an MA, a TESOL MA, and taught for many, many years. Was it Saudi Arabia, Chrissy?
I was in Saudi Arabia
Right.
and Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly Philadelphia, really.
Mostly Philadelphia. Okay. Why don't you take it away? I will.
Sure. Well, I'll go sort of chronologically, I guess, which would be starting with the crown, the little girl
Go back.
crown.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, that's it. So, you know, I made this in the end of March, I think, or April. And yeah, it was April because obviously, as we all know, we were sheltering at home, and I decided I'm going to try to use up all the materials I have at home and recycle them. So I happened to have a piece of cardboard packaging that had been in an IKEA lamp, I think, that I had installed. And it was this shape that you see when it was around a circle, and when you opened it up, it looked like a crown. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm going to make a crown for myself for my birthday, which was coming up in May, and decorate it with Corona virus imagery because it's so beautiful, and wear it, you know, to Zoom with my grandchildren on my birthday as a kind of just lighthearted thing. So I started looking in piles of magazines I happen to have at home. And one of the first images I came across was what's in the center of this crown, which is the two little girls. It's a little hard to see from here, but they're shooting water guns at each other. They're in their bathing suits, you know, in their front yard in the neighborhood, shooting water guns. And it just struck me so strongly how white that was, it's like how privileged that was. There they were in their picket fence neighborhood, totally safe and not having to worry about being suspected of being a criminal, brandishing a gun. So I decided that was what the crown was going to be. It was going to be a white privilege crown. And so I just kept searching for more imagery in the magazines, and it's pretty easy to find these idyllic images of little white girls, so that was very easy to compose. And then I just, on the back, the image is gone, Susan, I don't know, at least for me. On the back, I just explained sort of what I was thinking about. And, I was thinking about Tamir Rice, the little boy who I believe was 12 years old and got shot within seconds by a policeman who showed up in the park where he was playing with a toy gun. So that was the first white privilege crown, and that got me kind of excited about that. And I decided to do some more, which I'll talk about after we look at the top image, which it came next. This came about because of George Floyd's murder, and I was just like everybody else was saying, I was just so horrified and outraged and just had to do something. So I happened to be in Woodstock. This image is at my mom's house in Woodstock, where I've been sheltering basically. So I started out just writing the text in spray paint on the door, thinking I'm just going to do a graffiti, protest mural. And, but it was so, it just was so loud. It was like, it expressed my anger, but it was not beautiful at all. I decided I had to be a little bit more, more subtle, a little bit, wilier, and create something that would not shout at people, but would sort of draw them in with the same message. So I used this kind of despairing skeleton, which is something I've used before. And just spent the next 2 weeks basically, obsessively painting away. And it was very healing for me. Obviously, use my whole body to do something and to express this anger. And also it drew in neighbors from across the street that I didn't know who wanted to comment on my words and make suggestions about what they thought I should say and stuff like that. So that's that. I made a big list I tried to find a list of all the people who had been killed, by police, Black people who had been killed by police. And from those, I just kind of researched individuals. Some I knew, some I didn't, and just chose some to put on the door. So, and then the third image, or the third piece that's included, is another white privilege crown. So I've been also, like Karen said, I've been doing the same thing, like for a couple of years, trying to educate myself about African-American history, realizing that I was never educated in that at all, really. And I was existing in this sort of place of knowing in general what went on, but not really knowing any specifics at all. And so anyway, so this was the third crown I did, which is called White Women's Tears. And, I hadn't really been aware of that concept until, say, the past 6 months or so. And especially, thinking about white fragility and the woman in Central Park is a good example of, how horrible we can be. So anyway, again, I'm just using recycled materials and magazines. So the imagery is driven a lot by what I would find in the magazines. happen, of course, again, there are many, many images of very privileged, wealthy white women in any kind of magazine, American magazine, you would pick up. I happen to have a number of like home decorating or, cottage living or something like that, some magazines. So again, it's sort of the same idea with the mural, that I wanted it to be an image that would draw people in, and then, require some investigation up close. So that's really all I have to say about it, I think. Oh, this one. Yeah, so I decided to, I really went on around in my mind about how to display it, aside from just, I wanted people to see the size in relationship to a person, that it was really a crown. And I decided to get some white makeup and do a kind of white face presentation. Again, partly this is all part of the process. It's just a way of reflecting on all these ideas and books and things in the news and everything that, I'm trying to see in myself. And I realized I was definitely one of those white people that had kind of thought that I don't have a race or something, like I'm a neutral race, or I didn't want to identify as a white person. I always found it uncomfortable. But in my reading and research, I realized that's a fallacy. And so part of trying to face up to that was to present myself, as a white person in white face, with my wearing my privilege as a white woman as my crown. So that's what it is.
Thank you so much, Chrissy, for sharing. Unfortunately, Susan's computer died, so she's not here anymore. So I'm going to introduce our next artist, which is Amanda D'Amico, who is on the board of PCB and a Philadelphia-based artist. She teaches at the University of the Arts and Tyler School of Art at Temple, and is working under the imprint of Tiny Revolutionary Press. So Amanda, take it away.
I'm unmuted now, right? Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
we can hear you.
I just want to say that it's really exciting to have so many of you here tonight, and especially because you are not in Philadelphia with us. And I'm very excited about this exhibition. I think it's been really hard to understand what's going on this year in all of the many different things that are happening. And art is such a really wonderful form for us to, as artists, understand for ourselves, and as appreciators of art, to help make connections when we're so isolated from each other. So this piece that I submitted to the show is not radical in any of its content, which is actually strange for me. So my background and what I typically make, I'm an offset printer, which means that when I make something, I like to make a lot. I like to make hundreds of them. I like to send them out to people. And I do really love the craft of bookmaking. So I think when we went into lockdown initially here in Philadelphia, and, dominoing to every other place, I really kind of turned inward at that time and thought about, like, okay, how do I not freak out? How do I not panic? And I really returned to what brought me to book arts in the first place. I love crafting, and even as a young child, learning from my grandmother and my mother how to sew and knit and embroider and things like that. That repetition brought me a lot of calm in times of distress in my home. So this book was really tapping into that same self-soothing resource. I had this fish skin. So the blue is a piece of leather from a fish. I don't know what kind of fish. I took a trip to Iceland a few years ago when we could go places, and other countries accepted Americans. And I just thought, oh, this is really cool. It's a piece of leather from a fish. It was in a store. I didn't know anything about it, but I had to buy it. And then it sat tacked up on my studio wall for a good long time. And it felt like this precious thing, like what's worthy of the fish skin, and also what do I do with it? Like it's not a big consistent piece of leather. I can't really wrap boards with it. So as I'm making all of these zines
Oh my
and
gosh.
things
Oh,
about
Jay, so cool.
Thanks. As I was making all of these more political kinds of zines and things that are not disposable, but let's say like a lower material value, this started to just get more and more precious and more sacred and more like untouchable. And the lockdown changed that. I went into, we can't leave the house, we can't buy anything. I think if we have past lives, I have one that struggled through the Depression and went into like taking inventory of everything we had in the house. And so this felt like, yeah, here we go. This is it. This is the time to address what the skin can be. I, of course, didn't really know what I was making, and somebody, after seeing this exhibit, told me that they thought I gave the fish its life back. I just had this hot pink paper, which also like is so not high-end bookbinding, but I kind of love that even more. What I really loved was obsessively cutting each of the pages to the height that they needed to be. Everything is within a 1/16 of an inch difference. So how my brain processed everything shutting down, the economy shutting down, us being locked in our house, was to ignore all of that and obsess about how high each of the pages needed to be, where punching the holes needed to be. And I actually really, really enjoyed that. This project without a pandemic probably would have taken me a couple of years, but it was done, I think, early April, and I got really scared about having to actually face the world after I came out of finishing my fish book. But I so deeply admire how people have tackled these issues of racism and lack of political leadership and the pandemic, and just so beautifully. And I hope to be able to return to that someday. But for now, for this year, I'm just sticking with pretty things to try to feel better while I process all of these other things. And seeing the work that other people have done in this exhibit has really helped me to process that. So it's a real honor to be showing alongside all of you.
Thank you. I am back and I apologize. Chrissy, thank you for taking over all those that you did. Are there questions? Or we can use chat, or we can just talk. If you unmute yourself. Comments?
I thought it was amazing to see everyone's diverse work. I was really so moved by everyone's hard work that just came across in such different ways. Amazing.
And the work is very strong. It's a great show.
And one can appreciate things that one couldn't in real life via the virtual. As frustrating as much as I dislike it.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that, yeah, you know, you can't hold a creative person down. It just oozes out in new ways. And it's obvious when you look at what people are doing now on Zoom. And that work, that kind of approach wouldn't exist without this. So we just have to look at the positive.
That's true.
Because there's a lot of negative to look at. So.
Yeah. But hopefully we will have a better year next year.
I think one of the challenges I've found, and I've shared with my fellow book artists here in the Pacific Northwest, is how the pressure to learn how to use new technology, how that's going to affect what we make and how we make it. Because how we have been used to sharing what we've made has been seems so perfect because it was always hands-on, which is what we always prefer, right? But now it's like, how do we get the same effect? How do we share those same qualities from a distance in a way that that maybe gives us a new way of experiencing the book art than through a glass case, because now we're looking at it through a screen, but it's more intimate in some ways, and you can take more time to look at it than you could standing outside a glass case in a building. So it's really going to be interesting to see how our exhibition unfolds next year and how we create that for our members and for the wider world. So.
Well, the artist books do not lend themselves to exhibitions. I mean, under glass. They really have to be handled. So that really does.
Yeah.
That's been one of my complaints. It seems like the most elitist art form there is.
I agree.
And also, I will just throw this out because I haven't really thrown it out yet, is that speaking of being able to appeal to other communities of people with our book arts that maybe haven't been exposed to them in the past. I had the privilege of meeting a gentleman summer before last in Indiana who's blind, and he works at transcribing books for the blind as his work. And when I said I was a book artist, he said, what is that like? And I had to try to describe it in colorful language. And then he said, how would a blind person experience book art? And I said, boy, that's a good question. But now I'm started like thinking that, it's like, how could we do, what could we do? How would we present our work to someone who can't see it? So all kinds of questions have come up in the last while here that are pushing us out of our comfortableness. And I think that's a good thing. We'll see.
I would think that it would programs that allow for some tactility.
Yes.
And I'm sure that they're there. Would be the way to go.
I agree. Yep. Well, there you are. Anyway, this has been really delightful, and I'm so glad to be talking to people across the world and across the country. And it's really nice to see your faces. No masks.
Yes.
Can I have a question? How broad was the participation in the show? Like, we have somebody from the West Coast. Are there many other people from outside of the Philly area?
This is just a wild guess. I mean, Karen is also outside of the Philly area here. So we have two that are actually represented today, but I would think that there are at least 10, that are from outside the Philly area. I mean, that's a wild guess. I don't know if Kara has or Amanda, anybody else, but it's real. And that's been true. Our last year's exhibition at City Hall, there were people from all over, including Canada.
I would think we're usually about a third.
Mm-hmm.
outside of Philly.
Cool.
I guess that makes Philadelphia the center of book arts.
I love being able to connect with other areas. I mean, I think that's a real virtue and goal. We've talked about connecting with other art centers or book art centers, which we haven't really done, but this is a little bit like that. I think we can bring a lot, from people from elsewhere, as witnessed by just this brief event tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, unless people have other comments or questions, we probably can just close.
I would just add that there's a lot of other people on the call tonight whose work is in the exhibition, and the exhibition is not up indefinitely. So if you haven't gotten a chance to click around and look, there's some really excellent work that we didn't get to look at this evening, but you can look at on your own.
And also now the website is fixed so that you can click on something and get larger, which is a great advantage for a lot of people. So it's if you haven't looked at it recently, I encourage you to go back. And it will be up until this, when does it close? The end of December?
December 15th.
15th.
So
Middle of December.
will the digital catalog of it be archived, as in a paper catalog would be, so that you can look at it after the show comes down?
Kara,
We hadn't discussed that, but actually this whole process kind of made me wonder how we can do that, because we definitely should. It's such an excellent exhibition, and to follow what Amanda was saying, like being one of the artists, like I'm so honored to be part of this exhibition with everybody's work. It's so wonderful.
Good.
thank you, everybody. I guess
Thank you.
we will end. Thank you.
Thank you all you artists. Bye.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
I'm sorry about my
Thank you.
my technical glitch there.
That's all right. Be well, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Should we stop the recording?
Stopping.